Welcome back to RGR. I'm Ryan. This is me going rogue on the Kansas City Chiefs and the NFL. Got an extra bonus film room for you today, and it's kind of a combination. I'm going to show you a couple of clips looking at the defense, looking at Tyrann Mathieu, and then we're going to talk with Dan Harms, film analyst over at Arrowhead Guys, and then going to go back and take a quick look at Khalen Saunders, who's going to probably be featured a lot more than he should be or the Chiefs planned him to be at this point. If you're new to the channel, click that sub and the notification bell, leave your comment below, and leave me a thumbs up if you like this video. Check out yesterday's film room as well, and the game plan will be up before the game this Sunday. Want to start here and take a look at the run fits and what's going wrong. And we talk a lot about, you'll hear a lot of people talk about trying to do too much. And this is a situation where that happens quite regularly. There's also a factor that despite replacing both the staff and the players on the field, there's still a lot of hesitation going on. And this is a look at what the Colts were doing. And they're in a double tight here, so they have 7 blockers. And it's even as far as you have 4 linemen, 3 linebackers here, so it should be a one-on-one. Everybody should have a gap. Everybody should be able to maintain what they're doing, and that's just not the way that it works. And as we get to rolling forward, we're going to see the double teams. This Nelson guy, I'm telling you what, he's easily the most aggressive, and I think he just might be the best guard in this league. Comes off this double and is sliding out to get Hitchens. Now, the problem is, if you back up, what you see is everybody's got a gap that they're responsible for. And it should be that Hitchens should be covering over here with Frank on the outside, Lee on the outside. But what happens is Nelson comes off and gets him turned, gets him pinned. And that's really part of the problem. Again, he should be fighting through to this gap responsibility. You see here, Lee is going outside. He is moving to the outside, meaning that's his responsibility. That's really the only key you can take on what he really should be doing, but that is enough. And that means that this contact should come through Hitchens and he should fight through. Now, this is a tall order. Nelson is that good, but this is his area right here. What happens is a little bit of hesitation on Damian Wilson's part. And as we roll forward, right now, it's pretty clear. He's been tracking the running back Mack the entire time. Hitchens is supposed to be fighting through to take this gap, and that's going to pay off or be very much in doubt here in a second. But what should be happening is this gap is Wilson's, and he should continue driving through. He had a chance to get a tackle for loss here and really disrupt this play, especially with this lineman down on the ground. But as he did, he settles down and hesitates right in the hole, waiting. In the meantime, Hitchens has jumped into his gap responsibility, and now we have 2 linebackers taking the same gap, leaving this gaping hole to this side. All it takes is a quick back like Marlon Mack to jump cut and be gone, and that's exactly what he does. Now, he has to come back in, and eventually the linebackers are in position to chase him, but by then it's far too late. Now, that's just one look at some of the problems in the run game. We're going to have to see just what else goes on. Let's take a look at Tyrann Mathieu. Now, this is the big play that Tyrann Mathieu made in the run game. And really serve to spark the whole defense. And it's really an ingenious play. I like what the offense was trying to do, but I think Mathieu just kind of sussed out what they were doing. First of all, we see that there's going to be motion away, and that's going to try to distract him, try to get him to buckle down, to shrink his split down in here. But I think that what they have set up behind him with Mo Claiborne over the top and to the outside, I think he's comfortable there, and it allows him to focus in on the offensive line. As it rolls forward, you see that he is checking inside. He's not looking at Brissett so much. He's looking at the lineman. And my guess is what he's seeing is what I saw on film is that Costanzo's stance is a little bit different. He's leaning in to the other lineman just a little bit more, and he looks to be set up in a stance that is a little bit more open already, even from his dedicated pass set stance. So I think that's what he's keying on. There could be some other things that I'm just not aware of, but I know something tipped this play to Mathieu, and he does a great job ducking underneath the block that's coming of a pretty athletic tackle and just diving for the play to get to the ball carrier. You'll see his head come around and get to the ball carrier and try to make sure that he's got an idea of where this run is going. As we roll forward, it shifts right now. And he already understands that his acceleration has beaten this tackle, and he's looking straight at the ball carrier, honing in. And this is how Tyrann Mathieu plays instinctually, and this is how he makes plays. It's a beautiful thing. Ducks under just a little bit, makes a great open field tackle for a guy that's pretty shifty. Now let's talk to Dan Harms and see what he found.
How are you, Dan?
Good, Ryan. How you doing?
You know, I'm looking at film and trying to deal with what's on it. That's really the problem. But
that is the problem.
I know you guys are too. Did this surprise you as much as it surprised me, that just how poorly they played all the way around?
It did. I didn't expect the Colts to have the personnel to do what the Lions did, to be quite frank. I knew they would probably change things up a little bit defensively and go more man coverage, but I expected the Chiefs to be able to, counter it for some reason. And Andy Reid really kind of did the exact same game plan that he did for if he were to have Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins and Travis Kelce all at the same time. And when you don't have those two guys, it doesn't work to do the exact same thing.
That's what I noticed too. And I would expect a strong guy like Robinson to be able to have broken free a little bit more. Clearly, what little they did play in zone, I thought, the Chiefs took advantage of them like they usually do. But I want to see him make those tighter angle throws, or I want to see those receivers get loose. But they are pretty young, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you have last night or Sunday they had Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle as their 1 and 2, and then McCole Hardman as the slot guy, and you have Demarcus Robinson with the most experience as the number 1 receiver, which isn't ideal. He hasn't played a whole lot, and he hasn't had the success as Sammy Watkins or Tyreek Hill. So when you're going into that game, I didn't expect Byron Pringle to have the biggest effect on the offense. I mean, it was great to see, knowing that we have such depth at wide receiver, but not how you want it to go about. You'd like to see Demarcus Robinson, get more physical and get open a little bit more. There was a lot of holding, obviously, with the Colts defensive backs. They knew that they had to be a little more physical with the receivers to be able to keep up with them. But at the end of the day, you got to get open. I mean, I get that some of these guys don't like physicality, and with McCole Hardman, it's a little bit harder for him because he's still adjusting to the NFL and he's a little bit smaller. But Demarcus Robinson needs to go and get open. That's at this point in his career. That's what he's got to show.
And I think the thing that honestly stood out to me the absolute most is that it's one thing when Pat Mahomes is normal, or normal-ish, as far close as he's going to get, and able to move around. But when you break down enough of the pass rush and he gets hit enough that he loses mobility, and supposedly he's back at practice and looks like he feels like he's going to be good, but that's still a concern for me. And you can't let that continue to happen. I know that this is an offensive line that is generally pretty good at using their athleticism to their advantage. They just got overpowered and they got attacked a lot. And I'm starting to wonder if even the addition of Wisniewski is something that's going to be able to help them. It's a veteran presence, but how worried are you about the O-line?
Until Fisher gets back, I'm pretty worried because it looks like they're going to stick with Cam Irving at left guard. And I personally thought that he did a pretty good job in his first 2 games recovering after giving up some big plays to the defense against the Raiders and the Ravens. But now we're starting to see that decline because of his poor footwork. And a lot of it has to do with him being comfortable as a guard or interior position player. He doesn't get that depth on his drop foot as you need as a tackle. You see it with Mitch Schwartz. He gets back in there and then is able to adjust to an edge rusher, whether he goes outside or inside. And then Justin Houston took advantage of that. And he went around him almost every single time he was rushing because he knew Cam Irving wasn't going to be able to recover and keep him from going outside.
Well, and it's a tall order against Justin Houston because he's seen it all before. He's practiced against you before. That's not even the part that I'm most worried about. It's the fact that there's a lack of communication in there between too many of the interior guys from Raider on over to Irving, to tell you the truth. Right now, the only 2 that I'm confident in are LDT and Schwartz. And I have to admit, Schwartz looks like he's getting a little longer in the tooth. I don't know if that back's still bothering, but does he still look just as solid to you?
No, he really doesn't. He's starting to. I think he's giving up ground a little bit too easily, and the only thing that I can possibly think of would be his back still lingering a bit, because you see him in the run game and he's getting pushed back more. It looks more like he's pass blocking more often than he is run blocking, and it doesn't look good that the right side of the line, you would think he'd be able to run to a little bit more, and they're just not getting any push up front. LDT even has looked not up to snuff either. Like there's like you said, there's a lack of communication, and it goes from the center all the way down, and Ryder is not, I guess, as comfortable being a starting player as he is being a backup player. Last year when he came in, he did a pretty decent job in relief of Morse, but as he's been a starter this year, he does not look he's ready to be a starter.
Yeah, it's tough. And, my gut is always to then simplify what you're being asked to do. And this kind of goes hand in hand. And I know you kind of side on the let's be efficient as we can. Let's pass more than we run. But for two aspects, I want to get your take on the fact that if you can't pass block efficiently, you got to protect the quarterback. I feel you have to run. And I also feel like it makes things easier in terms of the calls the reader has to make, getting all five guys on one page and accomplishing one single goal. Does that make sense? Or are you still convinced that they just got to keep chucking it?
Well, I'm not just about passing. I've always been a run and pass. You have to have a little more balance. But in today's game, it does benefit the offense to throw it more. But when it comes down to it, this offensive line they don't get push up front. And in order to run the ball, you obviously need to be able to open up lanes and prevent yourself getting pushed back. But I think what the offense needs to do is mix in more underneath routes. I saw a bunch of times on Sunday where these vertical routes that take, that 10 yards and then they break, it takes too long for the receivers to get open so that Mahomes isn't under pressure immediately. And you'll see it in the first two seconds of his drop. He'll be there, he'll be in the pocket, he'll be okay, but the receivers are still facing forward. They haven't turned back to look for the ball because they haven't come out of their break yet. And that's when the pressure is getting there. And regardless of, the offensive line being bad, you got to help them out some way, whether it's helping the edge guys with chips or, like you said, running the football a little bit more earlier, not always on 2nd and 10 when you're already behind the sticks, but trying to get 3 or 4 yards on first down and maybe doing a little bit more misdirection to help your offensive line bit, and that they're just not really doing that so far.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame that the fumble came on a screen pass because I think that kind of took Reed out of his comfort zone, which it was surprising to me because I feel like the screen game's working very well, and that's another way to get the ball out of Mahomes' hands, keep him from getting hit. But I'm looking forward to see if Sammy's any close to going because I think the thing that Sammy does the best that they don't utilize enough is the slant game, and that's something that they can take advantage of immensely against man. I think it's got to be a staple this week.
Yeah, they did. I think that they may have underestimated the Colts just a little bit, and when Sammy came to the bench, maybe they decided if you're not really feeling like you have to go, you don't have to go. In practice, obviously, did hurt that hamstring a little bit near the end, and I'm not entirely sure how serious it is. He didn't practice, I believe, today at all. But if he is feeling it all like himself, and if Hill does end up playing this week, I think he really should get in the game because he'll have less responsibility on him as the number one receiver. Hill will obviously take that over, and he'll be able to kind of settle in and do what he does best, like you said, in the slant route and the yards after catch game.
Yeah, his physicality, I think, again, it all goes back to that hamstring and just how hurt it is. But I think that's got to be the focal point. Be able to maintain ball control a little bit more, whether you're passing or running. It doesn't really matter. Just hold the ball, especially if you don't have the time to look deep anyway. So that said, on the opposite side of the ball, the thing that kept it from Mahomes getting at least one drive that he usually gets was the run game. And I realized that this is kind of a trend. We saw the Niners do it on the 49ers do it on the Browns on Monday night. Obviously, what the Colts did to the Chiefs. This seems to be something that I predicted about a year ago, is that all this nickel and dime defense is going to lead to teams coming back towards the power run a little bit because it's again, put it where they ain't. But I don't know that the Chiefs are going to see enough of it to take advantage of it and really go wholehearted on a run. Can they defend the run well enough to get what they need for Mahomes with the guys that they have on the defense?
Right now, as it stands, I don't think they have that because of the injuries. Xavier Williams on IR and that Chris Jones is going to miss a few weeks. I was expecting kind of to see Joey Ivy back because he flashed a little bit in the preseason. He's got some burst that you need to get up in offensive linemen's faces, but Frank Clark has been the best overall defensive lineman against the run, and then everyone else has just gone downhill from there. Even Jones has been stout in some areas and then kind of misses his gap here and there. But the run defense, I get it's an issue, and teams are going to willingly run against nickel and dime defenses. But in the grand scheme, I think they've played better than we expected them to when it comes to in terms of points allowed. The Colts had 10 to 13 points most of that game, and the defense did a pretty decent job in preventing them from scoring, even though they were able to run the ball. It seemed almost at will.
Yeah, I'm with you there. At the end of the day, it's about points allowed, and that's what it comes down to. Folks, in a minute, I'm going to show you some of the plays, and we're going to take a look. What's your general impression before I show everybody what I saw? What's your general impression of Khalen Saunders? Because it looks like he's in line for some snaps this week.
I didn't when he made the team. I thought that he played the worst out of all the defensive linemen when I saw him on tape. But he actually looked much better than he had played in the preseason in this game. Whether it was due to him realizing that there was no other option, he had to step up into this role, or it was because he felt more comfortable as a 3-tech, which I think is his ideal position instead of at nose, where a lot of people thought that he would be. But he definitely played better than I expected.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else he can do. So, man, thanks for taking the time. We'll get back probably next week or the week after. And folks, if you like what Dan's doing, make sure you check out Arrowhead Guys and all of his work over there, as well as everybody else's. And leave your comments down below. Appreciate the time, Dan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Quick look at what Khalen Saunders did, a lot of which was good and a little bit showed where he's got to improve. On this first play, he's lined up over here in the B gap and is going to get a fair amount of attention as we roll forward. We'll see it here. And I think he does an admirable job. A rookie coming in here after not playing much, gets doubled, gets pushed aside, spins out real nicely, but then just kind of misses a little bit. He ended up making the tackle, great play, but could have made a stop that really could have made a big difference in this game. Now, the second play, he's lined up in the same position, and you're going to see him fight through. And again, do a pretty solid job for a guy out there. Defeats, holds his ground, shoves him aside, and is able to corral the running back. Again, a nice play for a rookie in his first live action. And finally, same position, now in the A gap, but shows you that as this game wore on, things change. And Noddy doesn't show it as much, but I think Khalen Saunders definitely does, is just how tired and fatiguing this becomes. And watch, after the initial block, just watch the pursuit that I think he could have been in a position to save them a few more yards if he still had some hustle in him. He breaks off, does all right there, but then just kind of pulls up and lets somebody else make the tackle. And you'll see, I want to back this up a little bit. This is a symptom of too many players right here. You see the verticality of how these guys' stance are as they're jogging. Someone who's trying to go fast is dipped down and has their chest lower to the ground. These guys are all walking it off and letting somebody else make the play. That tells you that everybody's not gang tackling like they need to. Need some more effort, need more pursuit, and they got to get a little bit better shape. That's what I have for you this week. Please let me know what you think is going on and what you think of these plays in the film room, as well as my guest, Dan Harms. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're not subbed, hit that sub and the notification bell. Leave your comment below and leave me a thumbs up if you like this one. Please check out these videos as they come up on your screen. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll check you next time.